Okay, we're going to continue on with channel strategy. Didn't talk about the picture in the background of these slides, but that is a channel buoy, which I thought was appropriate for channel strategy, and that happens to be one located just off of Port Clyde. So that's the Port Clyde lighthouse in the background. So when we're figuring out what our strategy should be for our channel strategy should be, there's some things that have an effect on that. What are we trying to achieve? What are we good at, and what are we not so good at? What's the mix of our marketing mix? So is it heavy on communication? Is it heavy on price, or is the place very important for us? That kind of thing. And how much control do we need to have over the presentation of our product? Is control an important part of our channel strategy? What do our customers need? What are other people in the marketplace doing? So what are our competitors doing? What's the overall outside environment doing, having an impact on our channel strategy? How are our competitors approaching the market? And are there efficient and effective intermediaries available or not? Are we selling something that's difficult to deliver and or unique, and therefore there aren't any intermediaries out there equipped to deliver our product the way we need it delivered? So those are the influences that affect our channel decisions. So the first level of distribution, usually for most companies, is a broker or an agent. And brokers or agents are there to facilitate sales. They're efficient because they generally represent multiple products. If you go back to your Parvaderm case, we're selling a shaving cream specifically targeted at women, and we're Parvaderm. How do we want to get that product into the retail channels? We don't want to sell it direct. We want to go through drugstores and cosmetic stores. How do we get it there? Well, we could have our own salespeople, not use brokers or agents. We could have Parvaderm salespeople that called on retail outlets. And the question is that efficient? Can we do that effectively or efficiently? They would certainly be better salespeople than some broker or agent who's representing a bunch of products, but we're not really selling all that much. Could we afford to have brokers and agents just representing Parvaderm? Probably not. I'm going to walk into as a salesperson, walk into a drugstore and say, I want you to carry this Parvaderm product. It's a great product, and I can tell you all about it because I know everything ins and outs of all of it, how good it is. But let's say I make a sale. What's the sale going to be? A week's worth of or 2 weeks worth of Parvaderm for this particular store? That's a small amount of dollars. If I'm a broker or an agent, I'm representing Parvaderm, but I'm also representing a whole bunch of other products. So when I make a sales call on a drugstore, I'm much more efficient because I'm selling not just only Parvaderm, but everything else. And in the Parvaderm case, these were rack jobbers, so rack distributors. Jobber is another name for a distributor or an agent. And they were those jobbers were not only selling the product, but also positioning it in the store and moving it around and straightening up the racks and making sure everything looked good. So that's good, but that means they have to call on lots and lots of stores, and they do that for Parvaderm, but they also do it for whatever other products they're representing. So they're more efficient. The other thing about brokers and agents is they have connections you generally hire brokers or agents because they have connections in the area that you're targeting. So brokers or agents already have relationships with the pharmacies. or the drugstores. They already have relationships with Walgreens and Rite Aid and CVS and then all of the independent pharmacies. So they already know the channels, they know who to talk to, they know how to get the goods placed. So you saw this a little bit in um, the first in showcase, where you had brokers who were used to selling to food brokers who were used to selling to grocery stores. They had that channel. They knew how to get to the proper people. They knew how to present the product and get it placed in the stores. That's something First in Show has no expertise in. So using those brokers and agents usually are channel specific. So a food broker would have good contacts with grocery store chains, but might not have any contact with pet store chains or mass merchandisers. So you want to choose your broker or agent to fit your channel strategy. If you're trying to sell to pet stores, you don't want to have food brokers selling your product. Because they don't know anything about the pet store market and they don't have any contacts there. So you want to choose brokers and agents based on their expertise and or their connections. You want to choose them because they're more efficient. You're not selling enough product to any particular location to make it efficient for you to have your own agents, employees making those calls, and they're there to facilitate sales. They're there to make this happen. That's what the rainmakers. That's what they have to sell, and that's what they do. So that's sort of the broker or agent. Wholesalers are a little different. Wholesalers actually take possession of products. So they buy the product from the producer and then resell it to the retailer. That's the definition of a wholesaler. So they are taking on inventory and distribution responsibilities as opposed to just sales responsibilities. They also take on the sales responsibility. So they're selling to their customers, the retailers in this case, or end users if it's a business-to-business situation. They are buying the product, so they're taking ownership of the product, so they're taking a financial responsibility for the product. They're also taking the credit risk from the retailers, so they're selling to the retailers, and if the retailers don't pay, it's the wholesaler's problem, not the producer's problem. They're offering credit to the retailers, and they're also traveling salespeople to those retailers to sell the product, your product and others. So they're combining a bunch of different products and selling them to retail, into the retail system. You choose your wholesalers based on the cost of transporting your products. So you want, if your products are expensive to move, you want multiple wholesalers close to the end markets. If you need fast delivery, you need multiple wholesalers close to the end markets. How many wholesalers you need has to do with how many retailers you have. So it's kind of based on the product and your strategy, your marketing strategy. And also, the wholesalers oftentimes have service capabilities, so they may be able to provide engineering service or repair service or that kind of thing for the product. So if you're buying a diesel engine for a boat, you may well be buying it not directly from the manufacturer like a Yanmar or a Caterpillar, but from a distributor, wholesaler, who has the Caterpillar or the Yanmar wholesale franchise for a particular area, and those wholesalers have also all of the service and parts and so forth for that area. So if you were buying a Caterpillar product in the Northeast, in New England, you'd be buying it from Milton Cat. Milton Cat is a large distributor, independent of Caterpillar, who has the distribution rights for the Northeast. So New England and upstate New York, I think, is their territory. So big organization, probably a multi-billion-dollar organization, selling Caterpillar products, not just engines, but earth movers and stuff. and that's what their business is. So Caterpillar doesn't direct sell to their customers, they go through a distribution channel. So that's what wholesalers are used for. Think about wholesalers. My favorite example for wholesalers is if I'm a winery based in California, I produce a few thousand cases of wine a year. Do I want to try and sell to every wine store direct? Or so if I'm going through retail channels, or do I want to sell to individuals? Or would I rather sell to a wholesaler who combines my wine, my cases of wine, with the wine from several hundred or so other wineries in California, and then distributes them together to retailers and or consumers? So I'm a small producer. I only produce a few thousand cases a year. How do I get that product to my customers? Maybe the most efficient way to do it may be through a wholesaler. So, and then let's go on and talk about retail choices. Once again, we have some choices. What do our buyers need? What is our target market and how are we going to cover it? And what kind of profitability are we going to provide to our retailers? So lots of choices here. The basic distribution choice for retail is usually comes down to these three choices. We can use intensive distribution, which means we have as many retail outlets as possible. We can be somewhat selective. We can have a few retail locations in each area. Or we can have exclusive distribution. So we only have one retail outlet or retail chain for each market. And franchising is a subset of that. So we'll talk about that. So intensive distribution is usually for products that are impulse purchases. So if I'm selling Pepsi-Cola or Coca-Cola, I probably want intensive distribution. I want it available everywhere. So I'm going to sell to convenience stores. I'm going to sell in vending machines. I'm going to sell it in supermarkets. I'm going to sell it in mass market retailers. I'm going to sell it at soda fountains. I'm going to sell it everywhere. So if I want a Coke, if I'm a consumer and I want a soda or some kind of a sweet drink, I can get it very close to wherever I am. I don't have to go and search for it. It's there. It's everywhere. So that's an intensive distribution plan. Selective distribution, we might have a few places where you can get a product in a particular market. So you may have to, as a consumer, you may have to travel a little bit to find the product, but not too much. It'll be relatively close to you and available, but not available everywhere. So that's a selective situation. And then exclusive distribution usually is for either very specialized products or for very high-end products where we only have one distribution outlet in a particular area. And you can think about high-end products like fancy watches or fancy cars, that sort of thing would be an exclusive distribution network. So if you think about cars, that's kind of easy to think about. You may have multiple Chevrolet dealerships within your within say 30 miles of any location in any place that you might be, but you might have one Mercedes-Benz dealer within 50 or 60 miles of any location. So you've got an exclusive distribution situation with Mercedes-Benz and a somewhat selective distribution system with Chevrolet. And then Pepsi-Cola has intensive distribution. So, and franchising is another type of exclusive distribution. So if I'm let's say I'm a McDonald's franchisee, I'm going to have exclusive rights to a certain geographic area. So if I'm the McDonald's franchise for Eastern Maine, I'm going to be the only person with McDonald's franchises in that marketplace. And I have some kind of a contract, probably a 10-year contract, that gives me that exclusivity. So I can put up a McDonald's, and I know that no one's going to put up a McDonald's across the street from me. So that's an exclusive distribution for something that's actually fairly intensely distributed, but each retailer has exclusivity through a franchise agreement. So this is, I've already gone through all of this, selective distribution and exclusive. If we need personal selling, we want to maintain brand image, or our consumer expects that sort of thing. Not much thought in the purchase decision for intensive distribution. So what kind of things do buyers want? They need information, maybe, or maybe not. Maybe they don't need much information about Pepsi-Cola. They may want variety, so a lot of choices in a particular category. They may want convenience, and they may want or need service. So let's go through each one of those choices. Information. So I may want information about a product if I don't know a lot about it. So if I'm buying, let's say, a very high-end stereo speakers or hi-fi speakers, they're just a box. How do I know everything about them? Do I need more information? Do I want someone who understands these speakers to tell me the difference between brand X and brand Y? Is that important for me? I don't really understand all of the decibels and the ohms and all those kinds of things. I do know what I like to hear. I understand there's a difference in quality. How do I figure that out? So maybe if I'm selling a high-end speaker, I may need to provide information to my consumers, and my channel decision may be based on that. So if I choose to sell my speakers at Best Buy, there's not going to be a whole lot of information exchange happening at Best Buy. But if I choose to sell it through a specialty hi-fi store, there's a lot more knowledge and information there. So that's kind of what do my buyers need. So I'm going to make my decisions on distribution based on what my buyers need and want. How convenient is it? This is a second thing. If convenience is important, then I have to meet that need for my consumers. So if it's something that's bought frequently, minimal time and hassle is really important. If I'm selling any kind of things that are used often, convenience becomes really, really important. If I'm selling razor blades or shaving cream or deodorant, it needs to be convenient. I don't want to go driving a long distance or waiting a long time to get my deodorant. I need it right now, and I didn't plan ahead for it. I just ran out of what I had, so I need to get more. So that's important if I'm selling a convenience product, but there are other products that aren't so convenient. So, and when you're looking at internet purchases, easy to locate and navigate, fast delivery, free delivery, all of those things are about convenience for the consumer. So things that we need right away on the internet become very, very important, that my internet network, however I'm choosing to deliver my product, is efficient for the consumer that needs convenience. Sometimes buyers want to be able to compare. So they want to go into a store or a retailer and compare product A, B, C, and D, all of which are similar but somewhat different. So if my consumer wants variety, I need to make sure that my product is placed in a place that has variety. So let's go back to the stereo speaker example. I want to buy a high-end stereo speaker, hi-fi speaker. I want to go to a store where I can, or a retailer where I can listen to maybe 3 or 4 different options, or 5 or 6 or 7 different options, to hear the difference, to see what I like best. So I wanted information in that situation. So I'm getting information from the retailer. He can tell me all of the technical specs and so forth about the product. And then I can hear with my own ears, and I can compare product A and B and C, all of which sort of meet my specifications, but they sound different. So now I've got a variety, and that could be for clothing, it could be for speakers, doesn't really matter what the product is. Does my consumer want to have some choices, or do they just want to see my product and nothing else? And then finally, services is a big part of retail choice. So if some products require lots of service, delivery service, pickup service, installation service, repair service, those products all need certain kinds of channels to deliver that. So if I'm selling, in the example here, household appliances, if I'm selling refrigerators, if I'm making refrigerators and needing to sell them, my retailers have to be able to provide delivery to the consumer's home. They have to be able to provide setup, and they probably have to provide some credit facilities, so they have to offer time payment plans, and they have to offer take away the old one. What do I do with my old refrigerator when I buy a new one? So all of those services are important. So if I find a retailer who can't offer those services, it's not a good channel selection. I have to find a retailer who can offer those services. Profitability is also very, very important. When we talk about profitability, we want to talk about profitability as a whole. So what's the profitability for a channel as a whole? We can't have a channel successfully if the retailers lose money on my product, they'll stop carrying it. If the wholesalers can't make money on my product, they won't distribute it. If the brokers can't make money on my product, they won't sell it. So each piece of the channel has to be profitable. And obviously I need to make a profit as the producer. So how do I do that? How do I make the channel profitable for all members of the channel? And there are lots of ways to do that, and some producers choose because their product is extremely desirable, they can not have their channel be profitable, and people will still distribute it and or sell it. But that's a short-term solution. Eventually, those channel members will find other options and push other options. So you got to be careful when you can't squeeze your channel for profitability for very long before your channel decides to go elsewhere and find somebody else's product to sell because they can't make any money selling your product. So very, very important, and think about that as a whole. The channel has to be profitable for every member of the channel, or the members for whom it's not profitable will seek other options. As an example, from my own background, selling high-end outdoor clothing, the process that I went through, I was a large retailer for products like North Face and so forth. And when North Face started changing their distribution patterns, selling to a broader market, because I was a specialist, so they decided that they wanted more intensive distribution. They wanted to be sold in more places. That reduced the profitability of the product for me. I wasn't able to, I had to be more competitive on price, and therefore the product wasn't as profitable for me to carry. So I continued to carry the product because it was popular, but I started looking for other options, other ways to set myself apart. I started looking for the next North Face, and that meant that I bought less and less North Face overall in my whole overall buy. North Face didn't care because they were getting lots of sales from elsewhere, but from my channel, my specialty channel, moved away from that product because the manufacturer decided to do something different that hurt the profitability of the product. And that's generally what happens. Channels react to what you do. They don't just say, oh, the manufacturer wants to do this, we're going to stick with it. So we've looked at all sorts of channel choices, but then the final channel choice is, let's not use channels, let's do it all ourselves. So let's do what's called direct distribution. And direct distribution, I'm the producer, I can have my own sales force that goes direct to consumers, and I can have my own retail operations and or wholesale operations that go direct to the consumer. So that's a direct distribution model. So I have my own people, and they sell directly to the consumer, or they sell. I have my own people that sell to distribution houses, so I can eliminate the broker agent, I can eliminate the wholesale, or I can eliminate the retail and go direct. So I can get rid of all of those intermediaries. When I do that, I'm taking on some other issues. And on the graphic on the right here, a producer with its own website selling direct to consumers, and obviously its own distribution centers and its own network of warehouses or whatever to sell direct to the consumer on the web. So those are direct distribution, and this particular model here over the last 10 years or so has become a much more effective tool. Now think about Amazon. What is Amazon? What are they? They're the largest retailer. They're an intermediary for the most part. They buy other people's products and distribute them. So they're a middleman. They're a different kind of a middleman than Walmart because they don't have stores, at least yet. I guess maybe they do now that they've bought Whole Foods. But prior to that, they were buying product from manufacturers, putting the product in their own warehouses, building a distribution network all over the US, selling it on a website, and then delivering it direct to the consumer. So they're an intermediary. Whereas some manufacturers are producing a product and then selling it on their own website, not through an Amazon, direct to the consumer. So two different kinds of things. So Amazon is an intermediary for the most part, though they do have some of their own product. So why would we use direct distribution? Well, if we can identify our buyers, it's easy to go direct. So lots of business-to-business selling is direct because we can identify the buyers. It's a relatively small market. And for business-to-business, personal selling is a major component of the communications program. So if I'm selling, I don't know, cranes, I might only have a few hundred customers in the US that might want to buy cranes. So I can have, and they're big tickets, I'm going to sell them direct. I'm going to have sales people call direct, so personal selling. So that might be it. I might decide to go direct if I'm selling cranes rather than going through distributors. If I have a lot of variety of offerings for the target market, I might decide to go to direct. So I mentioned North Face earlier. North Face has a very large direct market campaign. So they own retail stores and with their own retail stores. So they're selling directly. They have the control of the entire channel as well as selling online. And we'll talk a little bit later about multiple channel distribution. They're practicing multi-channel distribution, but they could just do direct distribution. And I can handle all the things that intermediaries normally handle. That's the other key part about direct distribution. Can I do everything that the intermediaries would normally do? And that's a lot of things. We talked about delivery and service and setup. That's one thing that retailers or intermediaries may do. They also provide credit. They also own product and have distribution centers. They have obviously the retail stores. So they do a lot of things. And if I'm going to do it direct, I have to do those things. I can't not do them because the consumer needs those things, has a need for them. Sometimes there just aren't any intermediaries available for doing what I want to do. I'm doing something unique, and there aren't any intermediaries out there that can do what I want to do. Or the intermediaries that are there don't do what I want. So I want to have, if I'm selling a very technically sophisticated product or non-standardized customizable product or something with very high value, there may not be intermediaries out there that can do what I want, so I may be forced into direct distribution. Think about channel selection right now in cars. All of the major car companies use intermediaries called dealers. Those dealers aren't owned by the car companies. They are owned independently. They buy product from the car manufacturers and they resell the product to consumers. They also provide service. They own the product once the product is on their lot. So they are providing finance process, and they also facilitate finance to the consumer. Tesla is trying to break that model. So Tesla has said, we're not going to use intermediaries. We're going to go direct. We're going to start a direct distribution of automobiles. So we're going to have our own dealers, our own company-owned retailers, they call them. They don't even call them dealers. And they are putting them in malls. And then we're going to provide service directly to you. We're not going to have service centers. We're going to come to you with service. Really different model. Very challenging model. Maybe a game-changing model. Maybe all the car companies will go in that direction at some time in the future. But definitely risky. The whole car automobile distribution system has been set up around a dealer network for 60, 70, 80, 90 years. And Tesla's trying to break the model by going direct. Will it work? Who knows? But they're willing to try. So, if I'm trying to be really exclusive, direct distribution can help with that exclusivity. And on the flip side of that, sometimes consumers think they get a better deal when they buy direct from the manufacturer. So that could be a price incentive to go direct. And if I'm trying to differentiate myself, which is part of what Tesla's doing, they're trying to differentiate themselves from the run-of-the-mill car. Not only is their car electric, but they're trying to set it up as a totally different kind of product, make it exclusive. Remember, whenever you go direct, you have to take on all of the functions that have been performed by intermediaries. You're a direct distributor. You have to do everything that those intermediaries have been doing for you. So you have to take on their warehousing functions. You have to take on their sales functions. You have to take on their credit granting functions. You have to take on their distribution functions. All of that stuff has to be taken on by you. And there's costs associated with that. So we'll talk about that in the next section of this lecture. That sort of wraps up this part of the lecture, and do the questions that follow the lecture, and then continue on from there. Thank you very much.